gonna die. We all are gonna die. We all are gonna die. We all are gonna die. Why don't we help each other prepare for it? Without death there could not be life. I'm talking about end of life conversations, conversations about the end of life. Death and dying, grief and loss, conversations about the end of life. It's called The Serviceberry.
Yeah, a favorite book.
And
Beautiful.
so I read this and it resonated with me so much that I just said, I'm
Yeah.
just going to start giving every single thing that we can. And that approach has created such beautiful momentum
Mhm.
that we will never want for anything. And we never have to tell somebody, oh, you better get it now because we're going to run out, because we'll never run out.
Right.
Welcome to this episode of End of Life Conversations. I'm Reverend Wakil David Matthews.
And I'm the Reverend Mother, Ana Luisa Armendariz. In this podcast, we share people's experiences with death and dying, grief and loss, and the end of life.
We really enjoy all of our excellent and insightful guests. They generously tell their stories with compassion and wisdom. We also want to thank Wakil and Wendy's children and partners for that wonderful introductory song. Okay, let's get started.
Welcome, friends. On today's episode, we're so very happy to meet Mel Bennett. Mel is the co-founder of the nonprofit Life Forest Cemetery in Hillsborough, New Hampshire. Life Forest offers deed-recorded cremation burials in a conservation setting. She has presented on establishing conservation forest cemeteries, GIS mapping of burial locations, and offering hybrid services for green burials to the New Hampshire Cemetery Commissions and the Maine Cemetery Association.
Wonderful, Mel. We're glad to have you. Mel's also been a guest lecturer on death and dying at Southern New Hampshire University, as well as a presenter for the alternative death care organization Things. Most recently, Mel served as a panelist for the 2024 Death Care Super Conference in Seattle, Washington, and that's where I met her. Mel believes every person deserves a dignified, recorded burial, and a public guardianship burial program is one such offering that meets that objective. Welcome. Good to have you here.
Welcome.
Thank you, guys.
So we want to start, I always like to begin and find out a little more about you and find out when you first became aware of death.
Oh, I became first aware of death in kindergarten. And I think it's an excellent question you asked, because it's not one that I think I would have thought about if you hadn't asked it. When I came home from kindergarten one day, my mom had our parakeet kind of wrapped in a small piece of fabric. Iggy was the parakeet's name. And I'm not sure how Iggy experienced his death, but Iggy died while I was at school that day. And my mother didn't want me to experience just coming home to an empty bird cage. I think she took that moment as kind of a learning lesson that was direct but soft about death, through the death of my pet parakeet. And I don't remember all the things of kindergarten, but I have a very strong image of that little bird in my mind, and I think I always will, because it was the first kind of visual of what death meant. And she had lost a child, my little brother, early on, and we had talked about it and, counseled about it. But I was so young when that happened that I wasn't involved in any of the services or anything like that. So I think the parakeet, even though I had heard of what death was, the parakeet and showing me the parakeet was the first time that I kind of really understood it.
Mhm. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm
Beautiful.
grateful for your mom for having taken the time and slowness of it to let you be with the demise of Iggy. So that was the first awareness of death. How has death impacted the history of your life? Like, where has it shown up?
Wow, it's quite a bit since the formation of the cemetery because I have the opportunity to be able to kind of experience through so many people their life and their death experiences and learning to know and love people that I never even met through the burials at the cemetery. And it's given me kind of a much wider knowledge and perspective on death and how it has such a wide reach to so many people and it affects so many people in different ways.
Mhm.
But I think, my mom's death experience was the reason that Life Forest exists.
Right.
However, since the inception of Life Forest, I've realized that the accessibility around death and how you kind of mourn people has become kind of rigid in a lot of senses. And
Yeah.
I find that the families at Life Forest really want a say and part of the experience to help kind of move their grief along, but also the approachability. We have death really follows a lot of sociological events that are going on in our lives right now.
Mhm.
And in New Hampshire and a lot of places, death by suicide of a certain age group of men, I'm seeing quite a few 30 to 45-year-old gentlemen passing away very early, but
Mm.
also um, addiction disease is taking a lot of people very, very young.
Yeah.
So I'm seeing a much wider demographic of young burials.
Mm.
And how can we how can we alter our approach in how we care for families with death so that the children who are now losing their parents that are still like 3 to 5 years old
Well, yeah.
can maybe learn to talk about it in a way and understand it in a way that somebody in their 40s or 50s may have not had the opportunity to. So kind of being part of helping to make it more approachable, less scary, more control has been a lot of my mission since kind of opening Life Forest for a selfish reason of commemorating my
Mhm.
mother, and then really opening my eyes to the bigger picture of what people are experiencing.
That is really powerful to hear.
Yeah, yeah, I just feel like I wanna take a breath or 2. Thank you for
And
sharing that.
I also appreciate that you're exploring how to normalize language for kids, right?
Yeah.
Like that is such a deep need as well. And that's like stacked issues and tenderness that you need to hold for kids if they have experienced a father who has passed away through suicide or a drug
Mm.
addiction. Like it's so fraught for, every aspect, but kids, this is a good chance to like let them know that death is it's okay.
Yeah, yeah,
I think one of the first burials that I experienced at Life Forest, before I had kind of seen the bigger mission and what it would grow into, was a gentleman named Justin. He was in his early 30s. He died of addiction disease, and he left behind 2 little boys, 5 and 7 years old. And they came to the service, and we were planting Justin's tree, and they had little shovels, and they wanted to take part, like, they wanted to do it. I remember the little 5-year-old, he said to his mom, "No, I can do it myself, mom."
Mm.
And he was helping kind of shovel the soil over his father's, you know, his remains. And I remember thinking, "Wow, this is really kind of hard to see." And I remember the kids kind of looking around, and it was very obvious, although the setting was slightly different, that it was heavy. It was emotionally very heavy. But as soon as kind of the tree was planted and the marker was placed, the little boy looked up to his mom and said, "Can we go swimming now?" Because we have a swimming area near the property, and we kind of say, integrate it into your experience.
Wow.
And that made me
Mm.
realize that that kind of ability to, like, not just go home after the placement of a headstone in kind of a, municipal cemetery setting and just having this stern moment gave maybe a softer transition, like a comma instead of a
Mm,
period, and they
mhm,
Yeah.
still come, they go fishing, the kids
Hmm.
use the phone of the wind, we have a little free library for the kids, but we
mhm,
also just published You Can Always Talk to Possum, and it's a children's book that kind of relates all of the death emotions through little woodland creatures that they meet.
mhm,
And
mhm,
Wow,
there's a
beautiful.
workbook at the end. It was all written by local child impact specialists so that we can give them to children who may experience a death um, at Life Forest. But it's available to the public, and we are offering just to anybody who needs it. The workbook can be downloaded at no cost. And maybe this will help the parents support the children through
Wow,
this.
beautiful.
Yeah.
That's
It's gonna help the parents too, right? Like,
yeah,
doing
Yeah.
yeah,
sitting down with the workbook is actually a really good exercise for the families for the adults to, like, process,
yeah,
even though
absolutely.
it's for kids.
Yeah, I
But
Yeah,
love that.
and 2, I think because children don't process the things the same, there's education for the parents as well. Something
Hmm.
that I didn't realize is sometimes parents feel like the child isn't reacting in a way that they expect, and they're like, "Well,
Sure.
does what does this mean?" And so it has, educational resources for the parents to better understand a child's process through grieving. And and so, I'm very thankful for the authors of the book. You Can Always Talk to Possum, and, again, we sponsored it, we paid for it through our little book publishing, but now we have this resource to provide to families, and so we do that, and it makes me feel so much better to have that
Yeah,
and hand it to that child.
mhm, mhm,
that's great. We're definitely gonna
mhm.
put that in the podcast notes. Also, the add it to our resource list that we send out to folks. And we have a
Yeah.
little grief library here, so I'm going to tell my friend who's running that we need to get that book in there. So,
Give me the
thank
address,
you.
I'll make sure that it's sent to you guys.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you so much. It's beautiful.
You're welcome.
Yeah, so I'd like to hear more about the work you're doing. Maybe explain to people what a GIS mapping is, that kind of thing, and really that whole passion you have for having people have that deeded. We haven't heard those words put together necessarily before, so it'd be really good to hear more about that and kind of maybe day in the life kind of thing.
Well, it's an interesting thing because when we started Life Forest, because I'm not from death care and because what the design didn't really exist. No, I didn't have any preconceived notions of how it could be. Honestly, I little kind of stumbled into it, right? Like I knew that I wanted it to be kind of a state recognized cemetery so that it would need to be decommissioned. I understood conservation. But very early on, I would say it was like 2018, we were at a funeral convention and we had our little pamphlets out, and a funeral professional came up to me and said, "Oh, are you one of those like natural burial, green burial places?"
Those.
Yeah, one of those. And I said, "Well, we don't bury full bodies, so it's a natural setting, but it's not quite that." But he's like, "Oh, well, I can tell you that one tried to open and what a joke. Nobody could find the bodies." And I was like, "Well, what do you mean they couldn't find the bodies?" And he's like, "Well, because there's no cemetery map." And in his mind, it was like the rows and, you know, yada, yada, yada. And I was like, "Aw." And he's like, "Well, without a grid and without a particular map and you can't see it in space because there's no marker, then how is somebody gonna find it?" And while I thought to myself, that it was kind of maybe a comment that had some sort of resistance to change behind it, I also thought, well, there is a little bit of a reality to that, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So, I have a close friend who is a PhD and kind of like all the things that I am not as far as magic and math and all of these things. And I posed the question. I said, "How come, in cemetery design, how come I can't type in my mother's name and know where she is, like, into my phone? Because I can type in, like, 'I want ice cream,' and I can get a list of all the places that are selling ice cream.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can order it, I can pay for it, I can arrive for it, I can learn about company demographics through it. Why is it that we can do that for ice cream, but not for our people?"
Wow,
And
good
he
point.
was like, "Well, because that cemetery mapping isn't designed that way." And I said, "Well, can we design it that way?" So I was
Hmm.
very proud to be the first kind of
So
cemetery
cool.
that actually did this. And we actually
Mhm.
still have we he created for Life Forest a cemetery mapping software that combines legacy of the land with the legacy
Mm,
of the person
wow.
by through shape files that we actually ask permission through USGS mapping. So that point in space, right? So this has a point in space. This GPS coordinate of this point in space is then said, okay, how far are the wetlands from this space? What is the soil type? What is the topography? How
Mm,
deep is the waterfall? And we can get all of those maps. Then we
Layer them.
down sorry? Through
And then
public
it's layered,
Yeah, we
right?
layer it through shape files, and then we created an internal software system, which then maps that same point of space with legacy information. Who owns the plot? Who's buried there? What are their vital
So cool.
statistics? Cremation number? What kind of tree did they plant? What is the lifespan of the tree? We keep all that internally in our map, but also you can type in a name, in any name, beneficiary, whatever, into it and then find their location by walking directions, right? So you can drive in
mhm,
directions to the land, walking directions to their burial plot. But the other thing that I realized is that, like, well, mapping is great, but when people were asking me as I was kind of brand new to this, like, how with cremains are you going to protect people's rights to space? And I said,
mm,
well, we'll be a legal cemetery, so you can't just change direction. You have to decommission through the state. Okay, but it's cremains, and I said, "Well, wait a minute. How come we have to protect rights to space? How come we can't just give rights to space? Like,
mm,
people are paying for it. They
Yeah.
wanna protect it themselves. They wanna know that
Mhm.
it's theirs." But
yeah.
Mhm.
deeding actual cemetery plots was kind of in the 1960s, there were some issues around that as far as tax burden, and then, like, people might wanna build a tower, because they had a deed. So I said, "Well, how come there can be a community that has access to a particular beach,
Mhm,
and that beach is accessible through anybody will have it deeded on their property that they can go to that beach and enjoy it with a certain set of parameters."
mm, wow.
And I said, "Can we apply that same kind of theory to the cemetery design?" So, although this glass has a point in space, that doesn't give me a right to drink from it. So, what we do is we provide deeded access rights to the family and whoever they list on as their beneficiaries to the point in space in which they have reserved or buried their loved one,
Wow.
which means that everybody has rights to get to where their person is, and nobody can mess with that without permission of, at this point, at least 300 people.
Okay.
Wow.
So, I think we're good. We're
Yeah.
not
Right,
set
so
in
every time you
stone,
add
but
somebody.
and then we
Yeah.
also, because we were the first kind of place to memorialize with a tree planting as a grave marker, because we're a legal cemetery, we worked to ensure that the memorial marker that's protected under cemetery law is described as the tree
Hmm.
in the legal documents. So we have an RSA that protects the monument placed for memorialization of a person. And in our documents, the memorialization is done through this particular monument, which is the planting of a tree. So,
So beautiful.
yeah, to
So
be
incredible.
if you were
Yeah.
to mess with anybody's trees, you think you're gonna cut a tree and build a house? No, you will go to jail.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is against law.
Oh, that's
So, but
great.
I was thinking about this too. A tree has a lifespan
Yes.
depending on who you decide to use as a marker. You could have a beech tree. I think they live 50, 60 to 100 years, maybe. I think I'm making that up. But at some point, let's imagine like your cemetery fills and it's 100 years down the road. A tree has been toppled from storms or whatnot. Does that right continue for that family? Or is there like
Yes.
a timeline?
No,
Okay.
so that's what the importance of listing beneficiaries, because a lot of people will list their youngest generation. We have like 3 to
Mhm.
5-year-olds listed because that child
Yes.
can then re-list and name her children and
Got it.
so forth. And within the rights of the access is the rights to replace the tree with the same type of tree, so it doesn't we have a cross-pollination plan, so we can't
Mhm.
they can't just be like, "Well, now I
Change
want
it too
this."
much.
Yeah,
Right.
you can't you have to have the same tree type, and it has to be in the same spot and, for growth patterns and spacing, but they are allowed to do that in future generations.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's
All
in their
That's
right.
great.
legal actions, yeah.
That's really good. I
Yeah.
assume you said because of your conservation background, I assume it's also somehow designed to be native plants that are normal for that area, rather than nobody's planting palm trees or. Like that.
Orange blossom
Well, we
trees? No.
we basically received a list from the Department of Agriculture of, approved tree types for our zone in our area, as well as approved nurseries that we could kind of get those trees from, and they help us to ensure not only like, when we get our soil tested, we'll know like, okay, so somebody can come to Life Forest and they say, "I really love this spot, but I want this particular type of planting." And if it doesn't if that area is not gonna sustain that plant, then they have to
Conducive,
either
right.
choose this is a list of what will work, or you're gonna have to consider a different location, which will support that planting, yeah.
That's really lovely though, because sometimes you just in a traditional cemetery, you're just allotted the spot willy
Yeah.
nilly to, and uh, whatever you want to put on there, you could put on there. So this is I love the intentionality behind all of this.
Yeah,
Thank
yeah,
you. I think
yeah.
it was, when you're not coming from that world and you were asked some pretty heavy questions at the beginning, like, how are you going to do XYZ? How are you gonna protect people,
Yeah.
like, way after you're dead? And it's a scary, like, you're like, "Whoa, how do you do that?" You know?
Yeah.
And so vital record recording is a big part of it, which is a requirement that you be recognized by the state and the municipality as a cemetery. Like, you can't if we wanted to be just well, not just, but a scattering area that's
Mhm.
not state recognized, we wouldn't be able to record in vital records. And state
Oh, okay.
vital records are very important as far as
Mhm.
protection, legacy
Okay.
protection, things like
Wow,
Wow.
that's great.
So
This has gotta be different in different states and other parts of the world for that matter. So do you ever, consult with other people, other places that and work with them to find their own way of doing this?
Yeah, actually, what at the beginning, kind of as we were looking at our growth plan, I realized how blessed I was to kind of make this happen. And as it progressed, we built it as we went. And we didn't like, there was no kind of investment from outside, right? We just kind of worked with families. And as we had the income, we were able to add these different things in our SOP and our branding and our intellectual, all this stuff that has to do with
Mhm.
businesses grew, right? And so what we decided to do was create a life forest cemetery management company, and we actually have a life forest location in Auburn, Maine. So we have the one in New Hampshire, and we will work with either landowners or individuals that are very passionate about opening a cemetery. Because we have this kind of vehicle, we can get
Hmm.
them all of their legal, all of everything up and going, all of the mapping, which in a normal situation is extremely expensive. And then it
Yeah,
kind of narrows down the ability of passionate people to make this happen. So with this,
Sure.
we can make it happen for them, save them that three to $500,000, right? Like
mm,
we have it, we own it, and we basically created something where anything that can be done through a computer, all the SOPs, all of the Google mapping, all of the paperwork sent out, the answering of the phones, like that massive amount of stuff we can manage, and they manage their land.
wow,
And and then
perfect.
we
Wow.
coordinate, but we don't like it has a feel of a franchise. However, we specifically did not wanna do that because I have found that in death, everybody has their passion and their ethos, and they're all different. Like, I'm very
Hmm.
passionate about kids not being frightened on the land, but when we worked with the stewards of Whistle Ridge, Life Forest Whistle Ridge, they were very passionate about wildlife preservation. How
Mm-hmm.
so they do wildlife releases, they do vernal pool events. Their ethos, they don't plant trees, they weren't interested in it. They wanted much more of a
Mhm.
natural setting, and that's
Mhm.
okay.
Yeah,
And
Mhm.
so we really want people to be able to be super passionate about their offerings, which means they have to be able to kind of approach us and meet the passions of who they're trying to serve.
That's great,
Yeah.
yeah. I
Yeah,
also
it
Yeah.
is.
noticed in the pictures on your website that seems like a very diverse, e ecosphere there, where you got a lot of just some choices because 'cause you're saying, people might need to plant different places. So it sounds like it looks like there's wetlands and there's water and there's higher places, and so that's really great. That's beautiful, and I love that you adapt that to the people who are choosing to do it. That's really wonderful, wonderful. So you've got the basics, which is really helpful.
And
Great,
yeah, and we
wonderful.
also worked very closely with making sure that we followed the USDA forest guidelines for ADA accessibility
Oh,
so
wonderful.
that
Wow.
everybody has access to the areas of the forest and their burial spots in a way that's
Mm,
safe. And
Mhm.
so to have the forestry kind of ADA compliancy to reference has been really helpful. Um,
yeah.
so when we set up the cemeteries, we make sure that they understand this is the pack of the gravel, this is how where you would have your parking to be required, and how much of a distance you need from the street because this road is at 40 miles an hour. All of those
Mm,
things we do basically everything for them. And I it's through our gift economy, so we can make this accessible to the people who wanna do it for the right moral reasons, and they don't
mhm.
have to do it to meet a dollar figure.
Oh,
Oh my
beautiful.
gosh. Wow.
That's
Because
so amazing.
when you add that equation, the entire process shifts in a way that makes me highly uncomfortable.
Yep.
Right?
Well, let me stop
Yeah.
you there before we go any further, because is that one of the challenges that you find? Like
You know, at the beginning, I don't find it a challenge because it everything has just kind of rolled out in a way that's so natural and beautiful, and I really believe that it's my mom and all these people that we serve helping us from some other space and in place that's helping to build this movement, but, as I was learning about, like, okay, how do I make sure I didn't bury my mother alone in the woods of Hillsborough? Like, all right, I moved the
Ah.
pile of tires, so we're good with that, but, how do we get other people here? And the idea
Mhm.
of, like, creating scarcity like you do for real estate,
Yeah.
there's one house on the market, so everybody's gonna want it. I was like, "There's gotta be, like, another way." And Dina Stander, who is a kind of an end of life, poet, shared with me this article about creating abundance through gift economy.
Yeah.
And it's called The Serviceberry, Robin
Mhm.
Val Kilmer?
Please
Yeah,
read.
a
Oh, yeah.
favorite book.
We and
Beautiful.
so I read this and it resonated with me so much that I just said, "I'm
Yeah.
just gonna start giving every single thing that we can." And that approach has created such beautiful momentum
Mhm.
that we will never want for anything, and we never have to tell somebody, "Oh, you better get it now because 'cause we're gonna run out," because 'cause we'll never run out.
Right.
And
Right.
in our,
Wow, that's
code
so,
of
so beautiful. I'm
conduct,
so glad.
yeah, you can't you if somebody comes there, you're never gonna change their heart and what they want for their loved one or for their own experience. So just bring them to where they need to be. If they come for a tour and really what they're looking for isn't what we have,
Mm,
bring them to where they need to be, and they'll
mhm,
appreciate you for it. And down the line, they say, "Oh, well, it wasn't for me, but Uncle Tom really, I think he'd like it."
mhm, mhm.
Just
Yeah,
be a good human being, you know?
yeah, yeah. Well, right on, exactly.
Really not that hard.
I know, right?
It's
Yeah,
not,
yeah.
and
Ugh.
people are so showing it they show up for it. We have, like, been so wonderfully received. We have been it's just it's wonderful. It's touching. I feel very
Mhm.
grateful.
Wow,
I'm
I
grateful
love it.
too.
That's
Yeah.
really good. So is there anything that frightens you about the end of life?
Yeah, I think so. I lost my mother to frontal lobe dementia, and she started that in her late 40s. I just turned 50, and so death itself doesn't scare me, but a horrific death process that drains the emotions out of my family and myself does
Yeah.
frighten me, right? And that's all part of the death process. And that's why I feel very passionate about kind of the things that they're doing in Vermont with Death with Dignity and things like that, because seeing what my mother went through, I just never want to put my children through that. And when you learn about
Mhm.
kind of genetics with these things,
Yeah.
of course it's scary, but I choose not to focus on it. But what I do is I focus on planning, making sure people
Mhm.
know what I want if there comes a time when I
Mhm.
cannot communicate it,
Yeah.
Mhm.
and being open and not being afraid to have those conversations. But, you know, actual like
Yeah.
dying doesn't frighten me too much.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Preparation, that's,
Unless I was
one of
plummeting from something. I have a fear of heights. I don't think I'd like that one. Oh, but I don't put myself in that situation too often. I don't even wear high heel shoes, so we're good.
Yeah.
Oh, it's
Yeah. Don't
that's
go
great.
parachuting, right?
So, how do you keep yourself resourced with this work that you're doing?
You mean financially? Like, how do I
I mean, like, how do you show up every day feeling like you have the energy to be present with people who are making these choices and not get like tired and kind of like, oh, I gotta go to work. Like,
honestly, I do that through the creation of a very strong and targeted team, because I found that I would not be able to show up for it after a
Mhm.
while, because I absorbed so much that I was getting so I mean, to this day, it's very hard for me to attend a burial and not cry.
Yeah.
And, it's taxing, right? So what I learned is that early on, there's gonna be things that I'm very strong at, and there's things that I'm not very strong at. And so the Life Forest support team, our team of people, is incredible. They've been there since day one. They're so loyal to us, but they're all very skilled in their unique service that they offer to Life Forest families.
Mhm.
And so having a very strong SOP, having a very strong training, having strong support for one another, giving each other like, okay, Tracy's going through a hard time. So let's all like kind of step up because we know exactly what her roles are and where we can each kind of fill in
mm,
for her.
mhm.
So the answer is a large support network within the
Yeah,
Life Forest umbrella and very clearly defined roles and
love
responsibilities.
it. Hmm.
And honestly, it's
Hmm.
about treating them very well in the way in which they need and deserve to be treated, with fairness, flexibility, bring your kids if you need to the service, bring your pets. Um,
Hmm.
if that's not gonna work for you, like, we feed our team in a way with support and both financially, physically, any way that we can, we serve them first so
Hmm.
that they can be their best selves to serve our families.
That's so
Mm,
great. Yeah, such wonderful
yes.
discernment about what you can and can't
Mhm.
do and everybody working
Mhm.
together. That's I really appreciate that. That's so
Yeah.
important. Community is our main thing. It's also what Robin Wall Kimmerer spoke about in Service
Mm.
Mary, the
There's
importance
no
of
way
community.
one person there it is no
Yeah,
way
Can
one
do
person
this, the heavy
no,
lift.
you would
yeah,
be
yeah,
so drained emotionally, and
yeah,
in the servicing of, a death is so multifaceted, it just takes so many unique skill sets that you have
yeah.
in my mind, it's the team does it,
Yeah.
and
Hmm.
and I show up, and I do what I'm told. Oftentimes, that's to
Okay.
clean the bathroom,
That's great.
whatever it takes. I'm like, "Guys, I'll
Yeah.
take care of the porta potty. You"
Perfect.
I'm good at it.
Keep moving. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. I
Ah,
love it.
so wise.
Yeah.
So,
Well, is there anything you wish we had asked you that we didn't get to, or something else you'd like to share?
I'd like to share something that happened yesterday, actually Saturday. I was at a burial on Saturday, and, I'm just so proud of our land services manager, our land manager, Mike, and I don't usually praise him because he happens to be my little brother, he's a middle-aged man, but he actually is my little brother too. But he's a very gentle, kind soul, and he's so thoughtful, and this family kind of his role in at Life Forest is dig the burial hole, have the tree ready, help to shroud for the family with them, and he decorates it so carefully. But in this particular burial, a very young man passed away. He was only 41, and he left behind a young daughter and a family that is just devastated. But both of his parents had accessibility issues to the point where, we had to make sure they could be driven up to the burial hole. We had assistants to seat them because neither one of them are mobile. And towards the end of the service, as the burial took place, the gentleman's widow placed his shroud in the ground, and the little girl, helped to put a scoop of soil. And then it was opened up to the greater kind of attendants to be able to take a shovel, say something for their last moment, and put put a little bit of soil in the ground. And I watched Mike, and I could see him kind of watching and making sure everybody was safe and, handing the shovel to the next person. And then I saw him looking at this gentleman's parents. And, they were kind of constrained to their chairs. And I watched him go to the fresh soil, and he took a small shovel, a hand shovel, and he walked up to this gentleman's mother, got on his knee in front of her with this shovel full of soil,
Hmm.
and just said to her, "Would you like to place any intentions? I know that it's difficult for you to be able to take part in scooping it in there, but I can do that part for you. It's about the
Hmm.
intention." And I thought, this isn't something that we trained him to do.
Mhm.
Yeah.
This isn't something that he was required to do. He just is a compassionate human. And I could see on that woman's face, I mean, she just like gently ran her hand over this shovel. And you could see it meant so much to her, this small gesture of kindness and
Mhm.
action that she couldn't take place.
Mhm.
And that's what, like, I was so proud of him. And like, again, not because he's my brother, but because that is what it takes to
Yeah.
care for people in such sad moments, and allowing for and ensuring that that is innately part of the service team that you have, that every one of them has this soft compassion, so there's a gentle place for these people to land in these small actions, and doing
Yeah.
that in a way that is there's space for is just so important to me within the design, which is
Hmm.
why, like, it could never be for sale, right? We could never say, well, you could pay this amount and open a life forest. Then I can't
Right.
vet it, right? Like our team
Right.
can't jury them.
Right.
hmm
Right.
hmm
and and there are many compassionate people that have no financial resources, but have
Wow.
all of the ability to serve. And I don't want to keep excluding those people from the death care world.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Yeah. Wow. That's so beautiful. It's funny because I mean, it's not funny. Not funny necessarily isn't the right word, but it's remarkable when this grew out of the compassion and caring that your mother showed you, and that she embodied, and then you can just see that sort of wound throughout everything that you've done, and just to see, and then there's all this practical stuff that has to get taken care of, but you do go through it. You come at it with this compassion and this desire to be of service, and how could you ask for anything else than that? That's so beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, you have a poem. Do you want to read your poem to us?
I almost forgot. Again, my mother had frontal lobe dementia, which had her slowly lose a lot of her facilities. So this is called Fragments. I miss you, Mom, who you were, so strong and stoic, so smart. You always did see in black and white. You dug your beliefs into the pavement. You were always so soft spoken, so kind. You were my safe place, my unconditional love. You never asked for anything, never expected greatness, only compassion. You redefined success to be perseverance. I miss you. I look for you in glances or a soft word spoken. You grant me fragments of who you used to be. I hold on to them like tiny treasures and place them gently on pieces of paper. I sketch in the outline of who you once were so I can look at you whole again, feel you around me again, so I can feel safe again. And I can't show you my pain because I know that you suffer. And you only see a small part of me. There is no mother daughter connection. Our bridge has broken. We say the words, I love you, but they may as well be the words, I don't know you. Because I can't share my life with you, cannot share myself. I am no longer 3-dimensional. I am a cardboard cutout of a person that you recognize, trying to sell you hope out of an empty briefcase. And when my despair feels so engulfing, my instinct is to run to your door, but I can't find you. All I have is the sketch of you that I drew based on a fragment.
Hmm.
What a gift.
Yeah, loss can
Wow.
be so difficult.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Well, this has been such a blessing, and we're so happy you could be with us, and we've learned a lot.
it was my honor. I was so proud to be asked. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you again.
Thanks so much for joining us on the End of Life Conversations. We appreciate you and look forward to sharing our stories. We encourage you to subscribe to have access to premium episodes and extra resources. Links to our guests and their recommendations and a transcript of this episode will be in the podcast notes.
Yes, thank you so much. And please tell all your friends. Follow us on social media. And again, consider subscribing for some excellent premium content. We want to acknowledge that the music we are using was composed and produced by Charles Heastand. We also want to acknowledge that we live on unceded lands that have been cared for thousands of years by Indigenous peoples who are still here.